Good morning. The time is now 9:30. I will call the July 13th meeting of the Mill Creek Township Board of Supervisors to order. Would you please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting is being televised live online on youtube.com. The link is available at millcreektownship.com/meetings, and it's being recorded by WQLN for viewing on Spectrum Channel 1024 and on youtube.com with closed captioning. Members of the public may attend in person in the General Assembly Room. Persons who wish to offer testimony at any hearing or to offer comments during the public comment portion of the meeting but who do not wish to attend in person must contact Township Secretary Cheryl Williams at 814-833-1111 or at swilliams@millcreektownship.com no later than 24 hours before the scheduled meeting to make arrangements to participate via telephone. Ms. Williams, has anyone made arrangements for this meeting? Okay, thank you. Next item is public comment on agenda items other than development or rezoning applications. Would anyone care to address the board this morning regarding today's agenda?
I'd like to address the board.
Sure, if you wouldn't mind stepping up and giving us your name and address.
My name is Debbie Binney, and I live at 1758 Wilkins Road. And I'd just like to address the board regarding the passing of the ordinance of the said property of Wilkins. I'm very disappointed in the board. Specifically, John Morgan. I'm very, very concerned. I'm sure down the road we'll find out how wrong you were. And reading the minutes from the June meeting, the last comment you made was that it's a perfect place for low income. All along, it wasn't to be low income, it was going to be high.
I never made that statement. And if it's in the minutes, I don't know how
statement, but it went on record.
I'm not sure why it was in the minutes, but I never actually made that statement. But I'm not opposed to low-income Mill Creek Township.
Yeah,
I will be on record on that.
On record.
But I will say, I'm not opposed to low-income housing in Mill Creek Township. I don't think Mill Creek Township should be exclusionary to any income bracket.
I agree, but I don't believe that they should be placed in the transitional zone, the approach zone, where the federal government says that it shouldn't be, where the state says it shouldn't be, and where we should have zoning on record so that this doesn't happen, so that we, the people, don't have to stand here before you and tell you it's wrong. We live there, we know what it's like, and I believe that by your decision, you have endangered those tenants that will be living there. And I hope you can live with that. You've cheated the township by doing this. Thank you.
Would anyone else care to address the board this morning regarding today's agenda? Please just state your name and address for the record.
I should know me by now. My name is Annette Mossberg. I live at 1838 Wilkins Road. I've been at Wilkins Road since 1987. When I moved there, there were approximately 40 mobile homes across the street from me within the property that we're speaking of. They were my friends and neighbors. I didn't oppose having them there. Well, I think around 99, the airport declared that that property was not to be used for residential use at all. They forced those 40 residents out of their homes. The FAA spent millions of dollars to purchase that property, to relocate those people, and to remove all of those mobile homes. They did that because the mobile home park wanted to expand, and they stopped it. Now you're saying it's appropriate for residential use? We're not even saying it's the R4 so much. It's the fact that it shouldn't be used for residential at all. The FAA deemed that long ago. They said it was not compatible for residential use. This should be maintained either by the airport or developed for agriculture or solar and nothing else. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else care to address the board this morning regarding this morning's agenda?
Yes, my name is Scott Swift. I live at 1748 Wilkins Road. I've lived there since 1982. And this main driveway is right across from my driveway. There is going to be 112 units that can't get out the other end because Woodside comes to a dead end where they have to go down to Edward Street. So the majority of them are going to come out and their lights are going to be right in my house, 110 cars at least every day, multiple times. Plus I think the road cannot take it. Road's never been repaired since they moved the mobile homes out of there. There's a huge ditch right in front of my house that the road's never been repaired. It's never been maintained properly. And I'm really hoping that this, it's just not in the right spot. I think the board is making a big mistake, and I hope they could reconsider. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Waldinger, just a quick question. The document that was presented that showed the alignment of the driveways, that was a concept plan?
That's correct.
So that was not a land development plan. So there may be opportunities with the planning commission to better align or find more appropriate alignments for those for the access points.
Yeah, there has not been a formal land development submission yet, so once
Okay.
that is in, then we could discuss the placement of driveways.
Gotcha. So just so you know, sir, when a formal land development plan is submitted to the township, all the residents there are notified, and there will be a planning commission hearing. And so there are opportunities to kind of discuss alignments of those access points. That I would encourage you to come to those meetings and bring up that concern at that time, and we can work with the developer to make sure those alignments are appropriate. Just so you know.
There's 18 drives going in 2 blocks.
Well, I think there's a difference between a driveway and an access point to the development. I think you're talking about the access point to your development. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else care to address the board today regarding today's agenda? Okay. The next item is approval of the minutes. Mr. Strauss, a point of order. I was not in attendance at the June 22nd meeting. Should I abstain from voting on it, or does it matter?
No, I think you can still vote on the minutes.
Okay. All right, is there a motion to approve the June 22nd minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second here.
Mr. Bach?
Vote yes.
Mr. Olet?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next item is the approval of the bills. Is there a motion to approve this week's payment batch register?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Mr. Bach?
Vote yes.
Mr. Olet?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next item is bids and quotations. First is change order number 1, Scott Park Rehabilitation and Development Project, Parks and Recreation, and Planning and Development. Mr. Walding, are you handling that this morning?
Yes, I am, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. This is a change order number 1 for the Scott Park Rehabilitation and Development Project. This project installed sidewalks to be handicapped accessible, ADA compliant sidewalks in Scott Park. After they were installed, the decision was made to install an additional 260 linear feet of 5-foot wide concrete sidewalk that extended from the newly installed walkway at the restrooms to the southernmost ball field to provide access to that field. This project was funded in part by a Department of Conservation and Natural Resources grant and matched with in-kind services as well as monies from Parks and Recreation and Planning and Development. It is the recommendation of the Planning and Development and the Parks and Recreation Department to approve this change order in the amount of $12,480. The original contract award to Lindy Paving was $98,540. This change order would bring the total cost of the contract work to $111,020. The funds are being transferred from the Planning and Development MS4 compliance reserve to this project to cover the change order.
Total project cost is $111,000?
For the sidewalk, there was additional cost, bleachers,
Oh,
park benches, I believe. There were some other costs to go along with the project.
In this change order, it connects the park with the school sidewalk, is that?
No, it connects it with another ball field within the park itself, connects that to the existing, or the newly constructed.
I thought the change order was to run sidewalk to connect the new
No,
trails to the
that,
school.
we did explore that, but because of some large trees and other obstacles in the way, it was beyond the scope of a simple change order, so that would have to be a separate project if we wish to go forward.
Hmm. Any questions or comments from the board? I guess I'm not sure where the impetus of this change order came from then. This wasn't part of the original project scope?
No, this wasn't. Once the new walks were in, it was decided that it would
Decided
benefit
by,
from this additional walkway to the other ball field.
decided by whom?
I believe Ann Sokol and Ashley Marsteller.
Okay, any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, is there a motion regarding change order number 1 for the Scott Park Rehabilitation and Development Project?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Bach?
Vote yes.
Mr. Olet?
I vote yes.
And I'll vote no. Next is change order number 1, Mill Creek Township Sidewalk Accessibility Project, Phase 9, Planning and Development.
Proceed.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Yes, this is a change order for the Sidewalk Accessibility Project, Phase 9. These are funded through the township's Community Development Block Grant monies. And it is part of our consent decree with Voices for Independence to improve and install these ramps where necessary. There were 16 ramps that were thought to be included in the paving list this year. It was based on a preliminary paving schedule. These 16 ramps ended up being in areas that were not to be paved in 2021. So they were shifted over to the Community Development Block Grant contract, which is this contract here. The change order is in the amount of $36,800. That still brings the contract to less than the amount of the Community Development Block Grant funds that we will be receiving for this year. So the change order is fully covered by our block grant. So we would recommend the approval of this change order with Lindy Paving in the amount of $36,800.
Thank you, Mr. Walder. Any questions or comments from the board? Is there a motion regarding change order number 1 to the Mill Creek Township Sidewalk Accessibility Project?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Bach?
Vote yes.
Mr. Olet?
I vote yes.
I vote yes. Next is the Salt Barn Roof Materials. Mr. Snyder.
Good morning, gentlemen. Building Maintenance is seeking permission to purchase the materials to repair the back half of the salt barn. These materials would come from Clearspan, the original company that installed the roof, and this is a warranty repair for the cost of $10,145.25. This price is for materials only. There will be additional costs for installation, which we haven't received yet. These monies will come from the AHU number 1 reserves. That was the new heating and air conditioning unit. There are $23,760 in that fund right now, and minus the cost of the materials would leave $13,614.75 in reserves. It would be my recommendation to purchase the salt barn roof material from Clearspan for the $10,145.25.
Thank you, Mr. Snyder. Mr. Lett, I know we've had discussions in the past about the salt barn, salt building, and perhaps changing the construction of it. Are you comfortable with these repairs?
For the meantime, yeah, they are necessary. I wish we had had a clearer picture of the condition of that roof, last year, but we didn't. And Gary, this is still somewhat of a warranty item? Is that
Yes,
correct?
there's not much, but I believe it's like $2,200 that they're knocking off the price for the
Right.
warranty.
Okay.
All right, is there a motion regarding the salt barn roof materials?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Bach?
Vote yes.
Mr. Olet?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Snyder. Next is police vehicle and accessory from MPD. How's it going, Chief?
Good, how are you this morning?
Blessed and grateful, sir.
Morning, gentlemen. I'm seeking approval for the purchase of and equipping of a 2021 Ford F-150 Police Interceptor. The vehicle and equipment comes to a total price of $61,109.76. There was $62,500 allocated in the capital budget for this purchase this year. The vehicle would be through Laurel Ford, who is a CoStarz vendor, and I have attached their CoStarz number for the, to your packet of information, the itemized list of purchases. So I'm requesting approval to make that purchase.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions or comments from the board? Is there a motion to approve the purchase of the police vehicle and accessories?
I'll make that motion, John.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Bach?
Vote yes.
Mr. Olet?
I vote yes.
I vote yes. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Next item is ordinance 2021-7, an ordinance to amend the Mill Creek Township zoning ordinance number 2011-8 as amended by changing the classification of certain parcel of land situated in the Township of Mill Creek, Erie County, Pennsylvania, described as follows, to wit, property located at Wilkins Road, Erie, PA, now zoned R3 medium density residential district, requesting to be classified as R4 high density residential district. Again, this was approved at the previous meeting. This is a follow-up vote to authorize amendment of the actual ordinance. Any questions or comments from the board regarding ordinance 2021-7? Okay, is there a motion to approve ordinance 2021-7?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second? I will second the motion. Mr. Bach?
Vote no.
Mr. Olet?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next item is ordinance 2021-8, an ordinance to amend the rules and regulations of the Mill Creek Township Fire and Emergency Medical Services Commission regarding the records management system. Mr. Olet or Mr. Shaw, would you like to discuss the ordinance, or?
Go ahead, Mark.
Sure. This ordinance adopts new rules and regulations applicable to the Mill Creek Fire Departments that would require a uniform records management system to be used by the departments. It also requires the departments to provide the data needed for the system and to cooperate in its management. In addition, the ordinance provides that the township will fund the purchase of the system and annual maintenance, as well as hire a person to oversee and manage the system. This stems from the standard of cover report that the township had performed on the fire departments, and through the recommendation of the Fire Commission. The ordinance also has provisions regarding penalties to the fire departments for violating the ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Any additional questions or comments from the board? All right. With that, is there a motion to approve ordinance 2021-8?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Bach?
Vote yes.
Mr. Olay?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next item is Resolution 2021-R36, a resolution pursuant to Resolution 2015-R20 and the Municipal Records Manual to approve proposed disposition of certain township records. This is a routine item on our agenda authorizing disposition of records. The records being requested today are MPD dash cam videos to be deleted between the dates of July 14th, 2021 and July 27th, 2021 upon reaching the end of their required retention period. Is there a motion to approve Resolution 2021-R36?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Bach?
Vote yes.
Mr. Olette?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next is Resolution 2021-R37, a resolution to update and modify various township COVID-19 policies. Mr. Shaw, would you like to provide an
Sure.
overview of that?
This resolution is being recommended, recognizing the improved condition in the pandemic and the changes in state and CDC rules that have occurred. As a result, the township is formally amending its COVID policies. First, the resolution amends the township's operation policy, eliminating several practices that are no longer needed. Remaining are provisions relating to what employees would need to do if they have COVID. Those types of things are still necessary, I think, to have. Various provisions relating to different areas of the township that are still necessary from the perspective of COVID, as well as other reasons. I would note that the security system installed as a result of COVID, which essentially locks down the private areas of the building from people wandering around and so forth, will still remain in full force and effect. There are obviously added security benefits that result from that. With respect to the township's policy for procedures for probable or confirmed COVID-19 cases, there was just a minor change made to that. That's the policy that sets forth how the township would react and what is required when someone within the township has COVID. And then lastly, the township's mask policy has been rescinded in its entirety.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Any questions or comments from the board? All right, is there a motion to approve Resolution 2021-R37?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Bach?
Vote yes.
Mr. Olette?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next item is a public hearing on a petition request, or a petition requesting a change in zoning classification for Fedorco Family LP for portions of properties located at 2920 and 2942 West 12th Street. The portions which front West 11th Street, now zoned R1 Single Family Residential, asking for the property to be reclassified as RC Resort Commercial. Mr. Waldinger, is there anything you'd like to inform the board of before we proceed with the hearing?
Yes. At their regular meeting of Tuesday, June 1st, 2021, the Mill Creek Township Planning Commission recommended approval of this rezoning request.
Any questions or comments at that meeting?
There was one resident, it was a neighboring resident along West 11th Street who attended, and she had questions regarding potential traffic on West 11th and how this may affect the value of her property.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone here to represent the Fedorco Family LP? If you wouldn't mind stating your name and address for the record.
Good morning. My name is Tim Zazula. I'm a lawyer at the Knox Law Firm here in Erie, and I represent the Fedorco Family Limited Partnership. And this request pertains to the two tax parcels actually at the northwest corner of 12th and Peninsula. There's actually we're seeking to rezone portions of each of those two parcels. There's a split zoning situation. The majority of the two parcels are zoned resort commercial, but there are two little sort of wedges along West 11th Street that are still R1 single family. So we're trying to bring both lots in conformity with one zoning classification that being resort commercial. Importantly, this rezoning is entirely consistent with the township's future land uses plan, which shows commercial zoning all along that West 11th Street corridor, further to the west even than the property that we're seeking to rezone. So again, it'll bring consistency to the entire parcels, get rid of that split zoning, and it's consistent with your comprehensive plan. So upon that basis, we would request approval of this rezoning.
Thank you, sir. Any questions or comments from the board?
None here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else in attendance care to address the board regarding this rezoning request? All right. Mr. Walding, I have a question, and I don't have the comp plan in front of me. Does the future land use map actually indicate additional property to the west being?
It
Resort
indicates
commercial
that that
district?
would become a mixed-use district, yes, extending, covering this property and further to the west. So that would cover commercial uses as well as residential.
Okay. All right. Thanks. All right. Well, there's no further comments. We will close the public hearing. And is there a motion regarding the petition request?
I'll make a motion for approval.
Is there?
I'll second. Yes, sir.
All right. Mr. Bach?
Vote yes.
Mr. Olet?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next item is exclusion from land development request, Country Fair, store number 14, Prime Realty 2 Incorporated Developer. Mr. Waldinger.
Thank you. Yes, this is an exclusion from land development request from Country Fair. This is for their store at 38th and Kahi. They will be installing a new freezer and a new cooler in the rear of the store. It will be over an existing impervious area. The new construction is an additional 346 square feet approximately. It is less than what is required for a land development plan to be submitted. We do have a form from the township engineer certifying that the request meets our requirements for an exclusion. And so at this time, we would recommend that an exclusion be granted to Country Fair.
Forgive me, Mr. Waldinger, do we need to actually approve that exclusion, or is that with, or is it notifying the board of your determination of an exclusion?
This one, we should have an approval because there was a previously recorded land development plan.
Any questions or comments from the board? Okay, is there a motion to approve the exclusion from land development request?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Bach?
Vote yes.
Mr. Olet?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next item is the financial security release requests. First is Arby's, West 12th Street. Arby's Funding LLC is the developer. Mr. Waldinger.
Thank you. Yes, the developer has requested release of the financial security for the Arby's on West 12th Street. We do have a letter from Greenman Peterson Incorporated, the township's contracted third-party stormwater management engineer, that states that the project was constructed in reasonable conformity to their stormwater management plan. We also have certification from the township engineer and Sokol that all required improvements have been made. So at this time, we would recommend that the financial security for Arby's, which is in the form of a Rabobank letter of credit, number SBLC 51273, in the amount of $84,524 be released.
Thank you, Mr. Waldinger. Any questions or comments from the board? All right, is there a motion to approve the financial security release for Arby's, West 12th Street?
So moved, John.
Thanks, Jim. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Bach?
I vote yes.
Mr. Olet?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes, too. Next is Larson Text Office Building, Norcross Land Management Developer. Mr. Waldinger.
Yes, thank you. The second financial security release is from Norcross Land Management for their Larson Text Office building that they built on Norcross Road. Again, we do have a letter from Greenman Peterson stating that the project was built in reasonable conformity to the stormwater management plan. We also have certification from the township engineer that all required public improvements were completed. So at this time, we'd recommend that the security be released, and the security is in the form of a cash escrow that Norcross Land Management provided us via Citizens Bank check number 5014-851595 in the amount of $108,300. We'd recommend that that be returned to Norcross Land Management.
Thank you, Mr. Waldinger. Any questions or comments from the board? All right, is there a motion to approve the financial security release for Larson Text office building?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Bach?
Vote yes.
Mr. Olet?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next item is the stormwater management plan and maintenance agreements for Whispering Woods Estate Phase 7C, Renard Peck Real Estate Developer.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Walden.
Yes, Renaud Peck Real Estate LLC has submitted their stormwater management plan as well as a stormwater maintenance agreement to the township. The plan has been reviewed by Greenman Peterson and is in compliance with the township stormwater management ordinance. The agreement, the stormwater maintenance agreement that was submitted by Renaud Peck is also on the township approved form and has been signed. So at this time, I would recommend that the township accept the the stormwater management plan for Whispering Woods Phase 7C, as well as approve the stormwater maintenance agreement for that phase.
Any questions or comments from the board? Is there a motion to approve the stormwater management plan and maintenance agreements for Whispering Woods Estate Phase 7C?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
He beat you to it.
I know, he's quick today.
Mr. Bach?
Vote yes.
Mr. Olet?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next item is the Knox Law Firm agreements for the Heinerman Open Records Appeal. Not sure who's handling this one. Mr. Shaw.
There are two agreements here. Knox Law Firm has presented one covering their right-to-know work that they perform for the township. It had been some time since that had been updated. And then one to handle the recent appeal filed by attorney Phil Heinerman regarding a right-to-know request that he made that we had responded to. The Office of Open Records made some minor adjustments to what we had produced, and but otherwise affirmed what we had done, and he's now since appealed that to the Erie County Court of Common Pleas. Under the right-to-know agreement, the rates will range between $225 and $340 for attorneys and $125 for paralegals. And under the Heinerman appeal, they range from I have that mixed. For the right-to-know, it's $220 to $340, and for the Heinerman appeal, it's $225 to $340 for attorneys and $125 for paralegals. I would recommend approving both agreements.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Any questions or comments from the board? All right, is there a motion to approve the Knox Law Firm agreements for their legal services for the Heinerman Open Records Appeal?
So moved.
Beat me again. Man, you got-
I'll second.
you should rock, paper, scissors, for it or something. Mr. Bach?
Vote yes.
Mr. Olet?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next is the Purdue Pharma settlement. Whoever would like to discuss this very succinct and simple issue.
I'll try to tackle that one. This is a proposed settlement in a bankruptcy case filed by Purdue Pharma relating to claims regarding its responsibility for the opioid crisis. A number of states, including Pennsylvania and others, had filed suit against Pharma for its involvement in the opioid crisis. Purdue Pharma was a manufacturer of opioids. In response, Purdue Pharma then filed for bankruptcy. As part of that bankruptcy process, the township filed a proof of claim asserting that it would it would be due some of the funds that would be available in bankruptcy to help assist with dealing with the opioid crisis. There's now a plan of reorganization before the bankruptcy court that is seeking approval that would result in settling all of the opioid claims against Purdue Pharma. Under the plan, there will be available under the settlement an amount of nearly $6 to $7 billion. The states, including Pennsylvania, will get a portion of that, likely in the, as best as I could tell, in the 225 to 250 million range. And then the state of Pennsylvania will then distribute those funds to the various impacted municipalities under a formula that's at this point yet to be determined. I suspect the bulk will go to the major cities, Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, but there should be not insubstantial funds that may come to Mill Creek to help it assist it in its dealing with the opioid issues. So at this point, the recommendation is to vote to approve the plan and settlement. It would eliminate the continued expenditure of significant sums for the litigation, as there are multiple lawsuits throughout the country against Purdue Pharma, as well as ensure a large sum of money available to help the opioid crisis. The owners of the majority of Purdue Pharma are also contributing towards that $6 to $7 billion. So the vote is due to be submitted to the court by tomorrow by 4, so I would recommend approval.
So this is kind of I'm assuming municipalities across the country are adopting or approving this same thing as a routine matter.
Yeah, I mean, the recommendation is to approve it. They think it's the best deal that they're going to get. They are going to, obviously receive a significant amount of funds to help deal with things. We're getting it now as opposed to 10 years from now when the litigation may conclude and, Purdue Pharma has spent most of their money litigating it as opposed to, using that money for, to help solve the problem. So, I think it makes a lot of sense to proceed. And, like I said, we had filed our proof of claim. Municipalities that didn't file proof of claim, I don't believe will get any of the funds. So it was good that we had proceeded to do that and move forward with it. So,
All right. Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Any questions or comments from the board? All right. Is there a motion to approve the Purdue Pharma settlement agreement?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Mr. Bach?
Vote yes.
Mr. Olet?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. I asked you to let him have that one, Tim.
You can have the next one, too.
See? Teamwork. All right. Next item on the agenda is amendment to the Mill Creek Township Business Development Revolving Loan Fund Guidelines. Gentlemen, as you recall, this year we established the Building Development Revolving Loan Fund in partnership with the Erie County Development Authority. As part of that agreement with them, we provided, I believe it was about $1 million into the fund, and then later amended it to a nearly $2 million fund with the Redevelopment Authority making recommendations to us to approve guideline amendments. Mr. Chris Groner, who manages the fund for us, recently recommended 2 amendments to the guidelines. The first is to increase the maximum award to be from $500,000 to $1 million. The reasoning is now that the fund has more than $1 million in it. He felt it could sustain larger projects. The other is to amend the terms of the loans. Previously, it was a 7-year term, was the max for new machinery and equipment. He's recommending increasing that to a 10-year term, which I believe is a new standard that the Redevelopment Authority is using for all their programs. So those are the 2 changes to the guidelines that are before us today. I would recommend we approve those amendments, but if any questions or comments, let me know.
I'm good with it.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the amendments to the Business Development Revolving Loan Fund Guidelines?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Bach?
Vote yes.
Mr. Olet?
I vote yes.
I vote yes. Next is the property tax exemption request, county parcel number 33-024-117.0-035.33, Westlake Road, Lot A. Mr. Zachewski.
Yes, the township purchased a parcel at the corner of Westlake Road and Hartley Lane for a stormwater project. in order for us not to be subject to property taxes on that, we've got to go through the formal process of filing an appeal for exemption to the assessment Board of Appeals. And this form starts that process. It should be routine. However, if you don't follow the process, it won't happen.
All right, is there a motion to not pay taxes to ourselves,
And the school district.
especially the school district?
And the county.
Oh, even more so the county. Questions or comments from the board?
None here.
All right, is there a motion to approve the approval of the property tax exemption request?
Make that motion, John.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Bach?
Vote yes.
Mr. Olet?
How about yes?
I vote yes. Next is communications. Mr. Jakshewski, anything else to share today?
No, I have nothing further.
All right. Next is hiring requests. We have a request from the police department, apparently. Chief wants to fill a vacancy for a police clerk. Any questions or comments on that? All right, is there a motion to authorize the beginning of the hiring process?
Make that motion, John.
I'll second.
Mr. Bach?
Vote yes.
Mr. Olet?
How about yes?
I vote yes. Apparently, Public Services wants to fill a vacancy too. Any questions or comments on that?
No, sir.
All right, is there a motion to authorize the hiring process for the Public Services clerk, receptionist position?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Bach?
Vote yes.
Mr. Olet?
How about yes?
I vote yes. And Judy Line requests a additional part-time employee of Public Services for Mill Fair Composting Center. Retroactive 2 weeks ago. Interesting. Okay. Questions or comments on that? Okay, there's a motion to approve the hiring request.
So moved.
This is actually a hire, not a,
It is a hire.
it is a
Yes.
hire.
Yep.
Okay, gotcha.
This is to replace an employee, Dan,
Yes.
that's leaving,
Has left.
has left. Okay, gotcha.
Has left. What?
Had left. Well, yeah, it's replacing,
I thought this was the Steve Cornelius.
no,
Training.
this is, we had a third person out there that left prior to, or right at the beginning of the season.
Oh, okay.
That we hadn't replaced yet. We had somebody in line for it, but he turned it down, turned the position down, and then
Oh, gotcha.
this is the new person in place.
Cool. All right, there's a motion and a second. Mr. Bach,
Vote yes.
Mr. Olet,
I vote yes.
and I vote yes. How's it going, Chief?
Back again.
You're up, brother.
Last two requests for today. I have a couple of training requests. The first one is for 2 officers to attend a traffic collision investigation course in the State College area from September 13th through September 24th. This class will be conducted by the Pennsylvania State Police. There are no registration costs. However, we're estimating our travel expenses at approximately $3,462. Excuse me. That would come from our travel expense fund at 44090 that has a beginning balance of $14,742.37, leaving a remaining balance of $11,280.37.
Any questions or comments from the board? Is there a motion to approve the training request?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Bach?
Vote yes.
Mr. Olet?
I vote yes.
I vote yes.
Thank you. The last one will be request for approval for 12 officers to attend a medical marijuana workshop on August 26th from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Merciers Police Academy in Northeast. Travel will be department vehicle, and there is no cost for the training.
Are they handing out free samples, or?
I'm not sure. You want to go with them?
Someone should go monitor that. I'll make a motion to approve the medical marijuana workshop,
I'll second.
Mr. Bach,
whatever that may be. Oh, yes.
Mr. Roulette,
I vote yes.
and I vote yes.
Thank you.
Next item is to inform the public that the board did hold executive sessions on July 1st and July 8th to discuss various legal and personnel matters with our executive team. Next is a public services announcement. I don't know what SWANA is, but I'm sure Mr. Olet does.
Well, I can read about it, sure. The Solid Waste Association of North America, SWANA, will be hosting a mini tech education session at the Millfair Compost Center on Tuesday, August 24th at 10 a.m. Presentation and tour, followed by a networking lunch. All right, to sign up, it's keystoneswana.org/upcoming mini techs. So just an announcement that that's forthcoming.
All right. Mr. Shaw, anything else from you today?
Nothing on my end.
All right. Ms. Williams, gentlemen, anything else for the good of the order today?
Lydia was awful quiet today.
Yeah, what are you doing back there?
She's busy doing real work over there.
All right, citizens to be heard. Would anyone care to address the board this morning? Uh-oh.
Actually, citizen, I'm here.
Citizen to be heard. Now we're in trouble. If you please state your
Important.
name and address for the record.
Dennis McAndrew, 1547 High Street. Dog with a bone, I guess, but last meeting you approved hiring or transferring 2 part-time dispatch to full-time. And you just spent $60-some thousand on a police car. And I'm not advocating to get, but you still, 20 years ago, the county dispatch was horrible. Mill Creek's like, we need to keep ours because it's horrible. Since then, they've spent millions of dollars, county taxpayer dollars. Mill Creek Township, I think, is underutilizing its resources. Instead of us having our own dispatch, maybe you could use that money for more police officers and use the county dispatch. Just a thought.
That's good.
And why aren't we?
Maybe if the chief wants to just briefly address
I mean,
some of the issues
I
that
understand it
are.
was archaic, but
There
There-
are
mean-
some issues that go along with it with regard to the software, purchase of software and contracts we're currently in. It's not to say that that couldn't happen in the future, but we're kind of bound by some contracts with our police software now that will take us for another 2 to 3 years, I believe.
because I was on, they were 20, they were through the act of attrition as people retired or, positions would, the understanding, 20 years later, now you have a contract, that was signed.
Well, this was a 10-year contract.
Right, so I'm just wondering if and when it seems like kind of the status quo, we don't want to, I just think we're underutilized, a potential source of, why pay for something twice? Because you pay as county taxpayers, we pay as Mill Creek Township taxpayers, and you pay on your phone bill, and if you have multiple phones, you pay for it multiple times. And
Right, and the other thing with our dispatch center, it doesn't just handle police calls, it handles township complaints after hours and stuff, so there's a lot more to it as far as that goes. But the contracts were the biggest thing is, because there's some significant money that was spent for the software, and we're gonna be ending that in the,
So
I
is
think
the
it's
goal
up to 3
to
years.
eventually, when the contracts expire, and that transition to?
that's a potential.
Because it seems, if we keep hiring people
Well,
from
and
part-time
there
to
was-
full-time,
I don't know if that is exactly correct, that we are hiring or transferring 2 part-time to full-time. I think they were just asking for 2 part-timers to be hired.
Right, I believe the part-timers were to get them in the pool of potential call-in
Right.
people. We need
for
more on the
fills.
roster to pick from in case we need them for
okay. Because
shifts.
I was under that they were becoming full-time, and I'm thinking, well, this is
No.
never gonna end.
Understood where you're coming from.
Yeah, so I mean, 20 years later, it's like, come on, let's start wrapping this up. I mean, I understand contracts and stuff like that, but, things do change. I mean, you guys, buying a new modern vehicle, you're not riding a horse anymore.
Right, and we are working with the county, and we have substantially reduced our radio costs by being on the new radio system, so it's slow, but it is, we are migrating.
So you are slowly trying to transition into the county
Well, I
system?
wouldn't say it would be my preference not to, because
Oh.
I still believe that we perform a better service for our citizens than what they would be able to provide. But if that's the direction the board would elect to go, I would say that it would be proper to go after that contract that we have for our software, because it was a considerable amount of money that we would just be doing away with.
Okay. I just, like I said, I'm thinking maybe, allocate the resources better, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Anything else for the good of the order? If not, I will call for a motion to adjourn at 10:21.
All right,
You guys are racing to make motions all meeting.
all right. If we must adjourn, I'll second.
Harding, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, Harding
Sure,
is such
these three
sweet
have
sorrow.
work to do over here.
All right, have a good day, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.